Of Stephen A's Cowboys for last place in the NFC East. So what does Doug Pederson think about his job security in Philly?
Have you received assurances that you'll be able to see through this season as head coach?
I haven't been reassured one way or the other, no.
How much pressure are you feeling from the very top of the organization?
Our relationship is good. We have we communicate, a lot throughout the week. Listen, some of these questions might be for Mr. Lurie, obviously, but look, my job is to prepare the team and get ready for Green Bay.
All right. Lots of issues among the Eagles, but of course they play in the NFC East, so anything could happen. They could still take the division. But Max, if they don't make the playoffs, should Doug Pederson be fired?
If they do or if they don't, you got to get rid of Doug Pederson. I don't even think he wants to be there. When your defense plays their guts out against Seattle, right? When they play the way they did, and you're on the Seattle 15 down 11 with 8:40 to go, 4th and 4, right? Look, I'm all for being aggressive. Don't worry about the negative outcome, but there's also such a thing as situational football. You're going to need to kick a field goal at least. You have a chance there to limit it to a one-score game, or depending on how you look at it, because you got to go for 2. You got to get it in the end zone twice. Nevertheless, you're still in a position to get the game to overtime, right? To go for it there, to me, in that kind of, you're saying our offense is never going to be down on the 15-yard line again, right? Like, I don't believe in them. It's saying, I don't want any part of this. When you go to Carson Wentz on 5 consecutive possessions, right? It's 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. You bring in Jalen Hurts. He finally does something positive, a little 6-yard completion. And on 3rd down, Carson Wentz is right back in the game and he gets sacked. To me, that's Doug Pederson saying, okay, tough guy, you want to do it your way? Here you go. There you go. What can you do? And you never give it to Miles Sanders? You never get it. You don't have to run on 1st down all the time, but could you mix a run game in a little bit? It seems to me Doug Pederson doesn't want to be there. This goes, Howie Roseman should go too. And if you can somehow move Carson Wentz's contract, you should start it all over again. Guys, Roseman also was a guy who was saying, remember what was coming out? Like, why didn't they trade for DeAndre Hopkins? They need that top receiver. He didn't want to give up the 2nd-round pick. Really? Because he used that 2nd-round pick. He didn't trade up for C.D. Lamb. He used that 2nd-round pick to get a backup quarterback. Like, nothing makes sense. Nothing fits together, including the owner, Jeffrey Lurie. But you're not going to get rid of the owner right now. So everyone has to go after the season. I don't care if they win the NFC least. They got to make changes.
Listen, Roseman hasn't been perfect. He passed up on DK Metcalf and drafted that dude, J.J. Whiteside or Sega, whatever the hell his name is. See, I don't know because I don't care because he's irrelevant.
Ortega Whiteside.
Yeah, that's exactly all right. We understand that, okay? But let's get that out of the way. But I'm going to tell you, I respectfully disagree. I don't disagree with your takes, Max, just your ultimate conclusion. I'm not giving up on a 28-year-old Carson Wentz who showed me just 3 years ago that he could be great. I think that can be rectified, and I think that ultimately it will be rectified. I think Pederson's tenure in Philadelphia should be contingent on what level of progress we see from Carson Wentz moving forward with these last 5 or 6 games or so. And from there, you make a decision. And I don't need to get rid of Howie Roseman either. He just delivered me a Super Bowl a few years ago, obviously succeeded in the Chip Kelly era. They screwed him over by giving the power to Chip Kelly. They should have never compromised themselves to begin with, but give them credit for making amends and making that correction and then ultimately getting back to giving Howie Roseman some control. And let me speak to this. Ryan Clark, you might know this. I know Max does, but you may know this too. Obviously, I worked in Philadelphia for 17 years. And I worked as a reporter and ultimately was a columnist for my last 7 or 8 years there. I haven't spoken to Jeffrey Lurie in a while, but when I was there, I had a very good relationship with him, and I'm very, very fond of him. I have profound respect for this man. He's been an owner of the Philadelphia, the chairman and the boss and the CEO for the Philadelphia Eagles since 1994. In that span, the man has been to the postseason 15 times. In that span, he's been to 6 conference finals. In that span, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, and he's got a Super Bowl championship. And one of the things that he doesn't do is he doesn't just lollygag around and say, I got you for 5 years, so you got a 5-year contract. He will make the changes that are necessary. I believe in him in that regard. And if what you're saying is correct, Max, in terms of Doug Pederson, he doesn't even want to be there. He said, all right, you don't want to listen, you don't want to do it, all right, go and do it your way. But that's negligence on Doug Pederson's part. You're the head coach. I know for a fact that Jeffrey Lurie is the kind of man, if he hired you to be the head coach, he's going to let you be the head coach. He's going to let you coach your team. So if you've decided I'm going to acquiesce, I didn't say changes in personnel, Max. What I'm saying is if they come to you and they say to you, we want to keep this guy, owner Jeffrey Lurie, pay them, then he's going to let you do that if he elects to pay the dude. Okay? So it's incumbent upon you to cultivate that relationship. And if you haven't done that, then there's a negligence of duty on the part of Pederson. I can't blame Jeffrey Lurie for that. I can't even blame Howie Roseman for that unless Pederson said, I don't want Wentz, and they signed him to that money anyway. That's different. If that's not what happened and Pederson was in the mix, he has an obligation to do everything he can to make that work and coach his butt off with this kid. He has that obligation. Floor is yours, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't think Doug Pederson should be fired. And you know, we live in this culture that if you have a bad year or if things are going bad, if you have Lane Johnson out, if Jason Peters is hurt, if at one point all you had was Kelsey healthy on the front line, that you think everything should go well. And then you lose Miles Sanders for a while. Obviously, Jalen Reagor is out, Deshaun Jackson. Like, you have all these things. And these are not excuses as to why this team should be bad or why it's okay for them to be bad. But it also, you have to look at 2017, you win the Super Bowl, right? 2018, you're a bounce pass off of Alshon Jeffrey's chest from being in the NFC Championship. The next year, with backups, with practice squad guys, with AAF guys, you make it to the playoffs. You win the NFC East, and you have an opportunity to beat the Seattle Seahawks, but Carson Wentz gets hit by Jadeveon Clowney in the first. And so, like, you have all these things happen, and you say, okay, Doug, we trusted you to this point. You've gotten us to this point. You've been in the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years. You don't just throw that away. And now, do I think he's mishandling this team this year? Do I think he's mishandling this situation that's going on at the quarterback position? Yes. But who comes in and takes this over? This team is going to be cap-strapped. This team is going to be trying to figure some things out. I believe he gets another year to work with Carson Wentz to see if they can figure this thing out together. Because what we said at the beginning of the season was this quarterback and this coach should be able to figure it out. They should be able to be good the way they were down the stretch of 2019, even though I know Max didn't think that. So we can't just throw this all away because of this year.
Guys, the problem is Carson Wentz has fallen off this year. When I talked about Brady's cliff, what I meant was he's doing great, all of a sudden off the cliff. He didn't do that. It was steady decline. Carson Wentz did that. Carson Wentz fell off a cliff this year compared to, and really it started the middle of last year, compared to the 3 previous seasons, like Brett Favre and Peyton Manning. In fact, those numbers just came out. Like completion percentage, everything fell off a cliff. As only 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL have fallen off after the previous 3 seasons, right? Something's really wrong. And don't blame the offensive line. Everyone's making excuses. In fact, ESPN Analytics, updated, by the way, through last night's game, say that the Eagles win on the offensive line, their win rate is 60%, which places them 12th in the league. That's almost an upper third win rate, but certainly it's over average. So it's not the offensive line. They're actually getting better than average play and protection for Wentz.
I'm not saying that's a reason.
But he won't run Pederson's offense. He wouldn't do it. Everyone's like, well, Nick Foles, Pederson simplified things for Nick Foles. Well, Nick Foles would run the offense. Wentz does his thing. That's why when he comes out at the press conference and says, that's just the way we do things around here, that's a dude who feels like he has a lot of juice in the organization. And Stephen A., maybe the head coach feels like, what am I supposed to do? This dude can do it and get away with it.
Well, again, if you're sitting there, let me ask you this question, Max. Are you reporting that or are you guessing? Has sources told you that Carson Wentz? What have they told you?
I won't report it. But I'll say that it's a very educated guess based on conversations and observations.
Okay, I can respect that. I mean, if what you're saying is remotely accurate in that regard, then I'm with you. My whole point is that, again, that would speak to Pederson being helpless. I don't view him as helpless, and if he's not helpless, he has an obligation. Guys.